President Trump's highly anticipated meeting with Vladimir Putin will take place this Friday in Alaska. Rich Edson joins me now. Rich, great to see you. What do we know about the meeting so far? Any details?
Well, Ashley, we currently know that it involves only two leaders. It's unclear if Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky will join them. Vice President J.D. Vance says the United States is trying to secure a three-leader meeting.
One of the most important logjams is that Vladimir Putin said that he would never sit down with Zelensky, the head of Ukraine, and the president has now got that to change. We're at a point now where we're now trying to figure out, frankly, scheduling and things like that around when these three leaders could sit down and discuss an end to this conflict.
Now, Vance spent the weekend in the United Kingdom meeting with Ukrainian and European leaders. The vice president says the U.S. is finished buying weapons for Ukraine, but says the administration will allow European contractors to purchase weapons for Ukraine from American defense contractors. Zelensky addressed his country last evening and said his team is working with the U.S. He has warned that Russia is trying to deceive the Trump administration. Ukraine also wants financial penalties on Russia to convince Putin to agree to an unconditional ceasefire.
We really are hopeful that this push from President Trump and the sanction packages which are on the table and secondary sanctions which are already implemented against those who help Russia will convince President Putin that this is time for him to finally stop his aggression.
Now, President Trump has suggested Ukraine and Russia swap territory under their control. Zelensky has rejected the idea, refusing to hand over more of his country to the Russian military. In his address last evening, Zelensky said no deadlines or expectations work on the Russians because they're only looking to kill Ukraine. Ashley?
All right, Rich Edson. Rich, thank you very much. Chair of the House Foreign Affairs Committee, Mast, joins me now. And Congressman, let me just pick up on something that Rich said there, that they're trying to get Zelensky to be a part of this meeting in Alaska. How critical is that to being able to find some sort of solution?
Well, whether he's present or whether he just responds to the conversation that takes place there, obviously he has to be a part of it. To use the example of if Russia's requesting any concession of lands, whether in the Donetsk region or somewhere else, that literally has to come to a vote within Ukraine. So they can't do it without the president and the Ukrainian people being a part of that. And almost certainly you could anticipate Vladimir Putin trying to make that a part of the request, that he get Ukraine to concede lands that they've been unable to take militarily.
Right. And the Financial Times also reporting that Europe wants President Trump to use sanctions against Russia for added pressure. Is that a good approach? Could that work?
I think it needs to be absolutely a part of this. I think the President Trump, he does his best when he's creating these ultimatums, whether it's what took place with Iran previously, and I think it can be what takes place with Russia right now. When you look at this situation, he needs to make sure that Vladimir Putin and Russia know, in my opinion, that the world doesn't need them. The world has worked to wean off of their oil, their gas, their caviar, their Stolichnaya vodka, you name it. But for a few countries that are still using oil and gas, that's going to come to an end soon, because the president is going to make that very painful to be reliant on those cash cows for Russia that's allowing them to prosecute this war. So when that comes to an end, they're not going to have those resources anymore. I think he needs to make those ultimatums, and he does best when he does.
Do you think China is watching this very interestedly? Of course they are, but if there's some concessions of land to Russia, I mean, is Taiwan in the mix here as far as China's concerned?
It's always a shadow over what could be Taiwan policy. Certainly land concessions being a part of that, but certainly also what I just spoke of as well, oil and gas being a huge part of it. China and India both being large purchasers of Russia oil and gas, as well as China being a large purchaser of Iranian oil and gas. And so when you look at those millions of barrels a day coming offline for them, it's a very big deal for them, and certainly they're looking at it for their financial markets.
Right. Let's change topics. Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu says the new offensive on Gaza will start soon. Do you support this?
Yes, and I think you look at these countries that are out there saying, well, we're going to recognize a Palestinian state, whether it's Australia or whether it's France or someone else, and you really say, look, the onus is on you to show me where Israel has been wrong about an offensive that they've conducted. Were they wrong about going into Rafah, killing Sinwar, rescuing hostages, preventing the transfer of weapons from Egypt into the Palestinian area? Were they wrong about eliminating Hamas in Lebanon and other places? Would Bashar al-Assad still be in power today if they hadn't done what they've done? Show me where Israel was actually wrong with beepers or Iran or anything else. And I don't think the rest of the world can give us that example. We need to give Israel the latitude that they need to bring this war to a conclusion where Hamas is defeated.
And talking of which, are we any closer to a peace deal?
A deal, I don't want to say that we're closer necessarily.
Yeah.
I think that's the wrong way to evaluate it. We want to be close to that, but it's the wrong evaluation. It has to be a defeated enemy. Otherwise, we just allow ourselves to be in the same cycle that we've been for the last number of decades, where Hamas conducts an attack, they remain in power, they get their hands on more weapons, even though there's a response to it, and then we're back in the same place again in a couple years.
Yeah.
They need to be destroyed, they need to be out of power, they need to be irrelevant.
And a part of that, Congressman, my final question is taking control of Gaza City, at least temporarily. Is that a key part of eliminating Hamas?
Look, I'm not going to say whether tactically how key that is to eliminating Hamas, but I'll say this in the same way that I just said it a moment ago. Israel doesn't do these operations haphazardly. They do them because of credible intelligence. They do that because they know that there are hostages that they can bring home, or the bodies of hostages that Hamas has refused to return that they can bring home, or there's a presence of an enemy, and they also do it trying to minimize every civilian casualty that can possibly be done by making sure they let people know in advance that they're coming in, move civilians out of those areas so that it's fighter-on-fighter warfare that's going on.
Very good. Congressman Mast, thank you so much for joining us this morning.
You're welcome. Take care.
Thank you. You too.